Time is your most valuable asset, so why spend it on exercises or training that gives you a 5% return when you could get a 70 to 100% return? Most people treat training like a random buffet. They jump from machine to machine or from trend to trend, doing whatever feels comfortable or following what social media tells them is cool. The result: low motor unit recruitment, low stimulus, minimal gains. The truth is simple. Not all exercises are created equal. Some movements recruit nearly all of your motor units, creating massive systemic stress and adaptation. Others barely scratch the surface, wasting your recovery capacity and your time. If you are busy, successful, and don't want to waste the time you have in the gym, you need to optimize. You need to focus on exercises that give the maximum return on your time investment. What we will be covering in this video is the movement patterns that you should be including in your training week so that you can optimize your training for maximum return on investment. Most of us are time limited, so it makes sense to maximize exercise choice so you can speed up the process of growing muscle and getting stronger. We want to choose exercises that create the most amount of disruption to the muscular, skeletal, and nervous system. The magic is simply in the basics, and I want to show you how to categorize basic movements on their biomechanical demands. Once you determine which movement patterns are essential for the purpose of strength and hypertrophy gains, then you can utilize a pool of exercises forged from those movement patterns. When needed, you can rotate exercises and layer them appropriately based on their demands on the muscular, skeletal, and nervous system. So in this video, I'll be making arguments and presenting how most people waste their recovery capacity on exercises that don't matter that much. Now, if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. It really helps my channel grow. Okay, so let's first start with motor units explained. And what are motor units? So the definition is a motor unit is one motor neuron plus all the muscle fibers it controls. So we have a diagram of that here, which you can clearly see, and that is the motor neuron here, and that includes the motor unit overall, right? So motor unit recruitment is the process by which different motor units are activated to produce a given level and type of muscle contraction. Motor units play a significant part of the adaptation process that you want to stimulate during exercise. When you first start strength training, your brain responds by recruiting more and more motor units every time you contract a muscle. As you develop training experience, you develop the ability to generate more force and your motor unit fire at a more rapid pace. However, mechanical loading is the primary mechanism by which hypertrophy occurs, with metabolic stress also playing a role. So to maximize hypertrophy and strength adaptations, we want to focus our exercise pool on movements or exercises that recruit the most amount of motor units, but also place an emphasis on mechanical load or the potential for the exercise to be loaded. Now, this is an area that many coaches and trainers seem to get confused or get wrong or get muddled up with, because they try to build a exercise program or address the client's goals through exercises instead of focus on the stimulus required to actually achieve those goals, which is usually strength and hypertrophy, right? It's only then, once you've created the right stimulus as the foundation, then you layer exercises on top of that, okay? So looking at the Charles Francis model, now this is or was a theoretical model at the time based on experience and being in the trenches, but over the years, exercise science has proved this to be generally true. Yeah, and there's many studies that feed into this theory. So as we can see, the most recruitment occurs from movements like clean and jerk, maximal sprints, explosive throws, jumps, snatch, clean, plyometric jumps, and then we feed down that chain into deadlifts, other forms of deadlifts or hinges, and obviously the squat pattern is there as well. Coming further down that recruitment stimulus chain is push-in movements, so incline press, military press, bench press, and we can also include like compound rows in that area as well. You could also probably include pull movements that recruit more of the back in opposed to trying to isolate one lat or something like that, right? And then way down the bottom is isolated supplementary lifts. Now, of course, movements at this top end are going to be more taxing to the nervous system and your recovery, but the trade-off is going to be more progress, more gains, more stimulus for growth, right? So we do have to keep that in mind, that they are quite fatiguing, and consider how we're utilizing this whole spectrum when you're building a program. Now, it's not to say that we can't use movements down this end, because they have purpose, especially if you're trying to fill gaps or isolate or rehab or target certain specific areas. Now, what's good about those movements is they have a low stimulus recovery ratio, right? So they don't cost a lot of energy to recover from, right? So that also helps us understand how we can structure a training session, but also a whole block of programming as well, right? And obviously then utilizing high days, high stimulus days, and low stimulus days, or pairing low stimulus days with maybe if you've had a match or you've had some sort of competition or some sort of training which is high stimulus, you can pair that with a low stimulus day afterwards and target areas that might be of concern to you. Okay. Right, so motor unit recruitment is a big part of the way in which the central nervous system, or CNS, controls force production in muscles. Each motor unit acts as the control system for a group of muscle fibers. If the CNS detects that more force is needed, more motor units are recruited to move the load, recruiting high threshold motor units and thus being more fatiguing to the nervous system. This training stimulus induced fatigue is what creates strength adaptations once we apply adequate recovery. Maximal motor unit recruitment is achieved at high velocity movements, as we can see in this diagram. So looking at muscle growth and the this Venn diagram that I've created here. Muscle growth is mostly determined by the mechanical loading experienced by each muscle fiber during the exercise or movement. To achieve the necessary level of mechanical loading, contraction velocity must be both maximal and or controlled. Once you develop control, you can then develop velocity. Now that is a kind of training philosophy to kind of adhere to, because if you're trying to take someone from novice to advanced, first we want to develop control, and then you can worry about developing the skill and the velocity and increasing load over time, right? Only this combination or gray area, which is this gray area in the middle here, here's my arrow, between motor unit recruitment and mechanical loading leads to enough stimulus cross-bridging forming in the muscle fibers controlled by high threshold motor units. This state can be achieved by either lifting heavy weights or lifting light weights to muscular failure. So why motor unit recruitment drives growth? When you're new, the brain learns to recruit more motor units with every rep, every set, and every session. As we get experience, you need higher loads and or explosive intent to tap into those higher threshold units. This is the sweet spot where strength and hypertrophy happen. The exercises that recruit the most motor units, the ones equals the ones you should be building your training around. So at the top of that pyramid, as we've discussed already, is movements like cleans, sprints, cleans, snatch, sprints, jumps, etc. Yeah, and then we go down into squats and deadlifts, or hinges, or any kind of like knee dominant squat movement. And then further down we come to pressing or overhead movements like bench press, obviously, and obviously compound pulls as well. And then right at the bottom we have isolation machine work. So emphasizing that gray zone, which is load versus speed, growth comes from mechanical loading plus motor unit recruitment. Lifting heavy equals recruits more units. Lifting explosively recruits more units. Combining both under control equals hypertrophy sweet spot. So what is a practical application of this? So this is an example of what your weekly training could revolve around. So for example, lower body day could include squat and variations of the squat. And then obviously lower body also could include deadlifts and RDLs and then variations of that movement pattern. Then we have upper push, incline, overhead, bench press, stuff like that. Upper pull could be rows, pull-ups, etc. And then we have a section for explosive and specific velocity-based work like sprinting, jumping, the Olympic lifting variations. And finally, accessories. Sprinkle these in for balance, weak points, or joint health, not as your foundation, right? Okay, thanks for watching. Really appreciate that. If you can give the video a like, if you have any questions, drop a comment and I'll reply. And if you are ready or tired of waiting for the right time and want to break through any training plateaus you have and accelerate high performance levels through strategy, execution, behavior change, and science-based nutrition, join my high performance movement, shoot me a message, DM, and we will hook up a call.